Welcome to the Road to Real Estate podcast, everybody. As always, it's me, John, and her, Lauren.
Hey, guys.
This week, we're talking about the role of real estate agents and what we can do for you in a transaction. But before we do all that, Lauren, you have something for us.
Yes, guys, we are going to do our Yeti Ready Cooler raffle here live on the screen. And so I have my random number generator up on the computer, and you are going to be here as we pick our winner live. So congratulations. It's exciting. A drum roll, please. We have our random number of 27, and our winner is Mr. All right. So Brett. Yeah, Brett A. So Brett, I'll be reaching out to you. Congratulations. We're really excited. And yeah, we have another raffle coming up in a few weeks. So watch out for that. But congratulations to Brett. Your Yeti Cooler 24 Roadie is going to be on its way.
Better late than never, guys. We postponed a little bit, but we got it. We got it done. So we'll get it ordered and sent over. I guess I'll send it to your house, and then, or you can order it you. Either way,
we'll work it out. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it's on its way. Is what's important. Alrighty, remember to like, subscribe, follow, notification bell, all that stuff, and we'll see you after the credit.
Welcome to the Road to Real Estate podcast, where John and Lauren help you grow your real estate business. Enjoy the show.
So, we're agents. We don't do anything, right? We meet people and we just take their money. I think that's what we're supposed to do.
My job is opening doors.
That's right.
I'm a professional door opener.
We are so important. See, that's why you need us. You can't look at a house without us. Not everyone leaves their windows unlatched.
Yeah, this is me pointing out.
Yeah. So I guess we should discuss what we primarily do. What is the primary role of real estate agent? Is probably the best place to start. And obviously we open doors. We got all solidified. And we're trained we know a lot of the legalities, not nearly as much as the broker that we represent during a transaction. But we handle a lot of the negotiations between people because, let's be honest, if you're selling your home or buying a home, there are a lot of emotions tied up in that transaction. And our job is to not be emotionally invested, but represent you and help you get through the transaction as unscathed and as happy as possible.
Yeah. I think that, your guide through a home buying or selling process. A lot of times people know what they want, but they can't articulate it. And so helping to narrow it down, helping to understand the market, helping to know what's available, what's in their price point, how to get approved or where to get funding from. I think these are all points that we help people to get to.
We're really good filters because, let's be honest, every step of the way is overwhelming. When you first start looking at a property and you say, for instance, in us, you go, I want to be in North Atlanta. Well, that's an extremely large area and a lot of different price points in that area. If you look at Cobb County from Mableton all the way through Marietta, there's like $100,000 swing between Powder Springs and here. You know what I mean? So when you first put that search in, or you draw it out on Zillow, and all of a sudden you come back with 3,000 houses, it's good to have someone help filter that down and go, okay, what is it you're looking for in a house? What kind of school system are you looking for? What kind of, have some of the stuff that we know, because obviously, if you happen to be a parent or have a kid, the school system is really important to you. Go, listen, we're already go to this school. Well, we can help that search come down to just that school system if you really want to be in that school system. We can narrow things down, and then obviously contracts start coming at some point, and they're overwhelming, and we take classes on that, Go ahead, you were going to say something, I can see it.
Well, I was just going to say, there's information that we narrow down. Right? It's not just school systems. It's knowing hey, my child needs this and I'm looking for this kind of school.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or it might be, that you are looking for a walkable area and you're looking for a small urban, like a small city to live close to. You might be looking for suburbia. You might be looking for your commute. And I think that it's hard because everybody's looking for something different. And so sometimes you can go to your friends like, hey, where'd you get that bag? Where's, you can ask your friends, where's a good place to eat? And that kind of information is really good. But when you talk about things like, where should I buy a home? The reasons why you buy a home and where you buy a home are so intensely personal. The advice you get from friends and family may not be applicable to what you're looking for. And so this is where you have an advocate and a guide that can sit down with you and really see what the needs are for you and your family and what's important to you. Because that commute, especially in Atlanta, that commute could make or break your living, your lifestyle. You might want to move just based on your commute.
Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, like I just mentioned, contracts. We go to classes twice a year because they update. At least in Georgia, we have a beginning of the year. GAR comes out with forms for us, and then they do a little bit of update mid-year. And most of us go with our broker and see what those updates are and are adverse in what's on those things. On top of that, there's a point when due diligence happens and there's negotiations going back and forth. And that's when I think there's a lot of emotions in that, especially when it's like, hey, someone's trying to lower the price on your house or you're trying to negotiate on your behalf. Having a realtor tap you on the shoulder, hey, this is reasonable, that's unreasonable, really helps. I've lost deals because I've made unreasonable claims. This is back before I was a realtor because I let my emotions get involved and stuff. So, which we've talked about on previous episodes,
Jonathon's missteps. That new name of the podcast.
The easiest way to learn, That's how I look at it. Like, you make those mistakes, you don't make them again,
Yeah. No, it's a great point. And when you're looking at contracts, and sometimes you just want to know, okay, what is usual and what is customary? Not that you have to do exactly what everybody else does, but if you're coming in and asking for $20,000 and customary it's $500, having somebody just say, okay, we can ask for the $20,000, but I just want to let you know, here's what I'm seeing in contracts right now.
This is the current trend in the market.
And beyond just the classes about our forms that Jonathan's right, get updated at least twice a year, we also go to classes about the market that tell us the statistics, that tell us what's happening right now. And so we have those classes quarterly. So we're updated on what's happening in our hyper-local area and in the larger Atlanta MSA every quarter. And we also have access to the stats every single month. And so with that kind of information, we just have more knowledge about the market.
Yeah.
So I think that brings us to the next one, right?
A couple times a week as well. Our particular brokerage and represents the Southeast, and we do a morning market update, and we do it several times a week. And so for us, we have that little tap in. It's kind of unofficial, but our brokerage takes care of that. And it has other brokerages involved, but within our title, What else do we do?
Yeah, our market expertise. I think that, this is something that that a real estate agent typically has market expertise, but you don't always know what that means.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to you, Jonathan? What is market expertise to you?
That's right when I'm about to take a sip. So to me, it's knowing the local market. Like, I try to stay local to where I live, so I'm involved in the community where I live. And so that's where I try to do most of my transactions because I literally walk in these roads every day. I know what houses are selling for in this area. Especially in the part where I do, I farm my neighborhood. I know the construction of the buildings because the same builder has come through here and built most of this stuff. So for me, most of my knowledge, the closer I am to my house, the more knowledge I have. And obviously, as I meet people and everything else, I learn about their markets as well and expand my knowledge as I'm working with potential clients, But it's knowing the school system in this area. I know the construction of the home in this area. I know where all the restaurants are. I can tell you how to get anywhere, everywhere.
Yeah.
Good selling price. I don't know, everything about this area.
I think that's great. Yeah, I think that's important because that local knowledge is so helpful, but also how you apply it to the people, right? Like, for an example, I know that Jonathan is not a Starbucks guy; he's a Dunkin' guy, right? And so, within a mile of your house, Jonathan, what do you have?
Got a Dunkin'.
You got a Dunkin'. So when we were doing our home search, I had that in the back of my mind, like, hey, is there one close? Is there one around? Not looking for the Starbucks, right? Whereas I am a Starbucks person, and on either end of the street that my neighborhood is off of, there's a Starbucks on either end of it. Now, there's also a Dunkin' too, but it's, letting some of those preferences be a guide. It doesn't always work out perfectly, but those little things can make a big difference. Sometimes we've had people that their daughter or son is a championship athlete somehow, and they need to be close to a certain gym, or they want to be a part of a certain program, or they want to move to a different school. And so these are the things that we need to be able to show them and tell them. But sometimes what they're looking for doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And this is where I feel like that market expertise really shines, because it's like, hey, I know you want A, but if you look at what A is offering, you can also find that in B. Would you be open to expanding your search so we have a little more choice? And so we've had those tough conversations before, right, Jonathan? Where you have to tell somebody, okay, we've looked at everything that has the floors, the square footage, the bedrooms, the bathrooms. We looked at all the things that you want in the specific area you want, and honestly, it's out of your price point.
Yeah.
It's out of your price point. So you have two options: expand the area, increase your price point, or change your criteria.
Yeah.
And while we can help guide them through that decision and say, hey, this area is very similar, you might be happy here, ultimately it's their decision. But because of the market knowledge, we can suggest other things. And I think that's where that expertise really, really helps the clients to make those informed decisions.
Yeah, definitely knowing the area. I mean, you mentioned before, we've had conversation where people want all of this, but they want to pay this.
Yeah. My champagne taste on my beer budget. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, it is, the reality is that, let's be honest, our market has skyrocketed over the last 5 years. And we consider it common knowledge. I think most of the U.S. considers it common knowledge, but not everybody has their finger on the pulse. It's like you assume people know what's going on in the news or politically or everything else. But that's not entirely true. Most people are in their own bubble doing their own thing. So if they haven't been involved in real estate, they may have heard this and that around the workplace, but because they're not involved and they're not paying close attention to it. So some people are shocked to find the value when they go, this is where I want to live in this area, and go, cool, with the median home price in that area is this. And they knew it went up. They had no idea it doubled. You know what I mean? So we're in that situation where because they're not involved daily, some people are extremely shocked when you go, okay, if you want to live in that town, this is what's available, and this is what it costs to be there. And it's eye-opening to a lot of people, because also we're in Georgia, which you guys should all know, and it's amazing how certain towns around the northern part of Atlanta have really sprung up price-wise. This used to be backwoods, off-the-grid town. Now it's quadrupled in size, and it's the place to be. That happens a lot. Like, I think of Cumming when I think about that, because it is not the same town it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago. It's a place that people want to be, So there's a lot of towns like that have done that since the pandemic. A lot of the more rural towns have really, really grown and really turned into their own little metropolises,
Yeah. I would have to agree. We saw a lot of people like exodus, right? Like people are leaving the city and wanting more suburban, wanting more land, wanting more space, and not as concerned about their commutes. And so it changed how some of our pricing is. And I think that's a really good point. So once we find the home and we're looking at it, next comes in our negotiating skills. What are some techniques that you can think of that agents use that people might not realize to secure deals?
So I don't know her techniques. I almost feel like this one still fits under market expertise, because when I look at it and seeing how long the home's been on the market, seeing what's been selling in the area. So for me, I guess just using the tools that I have, doing a CMA, comparative market analysis, so I know how that house compares to what's around it, to know what's available in that area, using that information. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know if is it a skill? I just take all the information.
It is a skill. And so tell us what a CMA, comparative market analysis, house.
So
Yeah.
what that is for us, we take and narrow down. Let's say our client likes house A. Well, what I do is I'll go through several different searches and make a little database of houses that are similar to it in square footage, in the same school system, similar layouts, build year, and see what is sold over the last year, what is currently on the market, see what's just trying to sell for. And I take all that information and I make a little spreadsheet and go based on house B, C, D, E, F, G, H, compared to our subject property, house A, this is what I feel the house should go for. And that number versus what they're selling for may be a little different. And I use that information to give to my clients so that they go, hey, listen, they've been on a house for a couple of months. They're maybe they're listed to a random number for 400,000, but according to all my CMAs, and we've obviously already looked at the house at this point, that's why we're getting ready to put an offer on it, and what we see inside and how it compares to these other houses, I think we can do an offer of 340 or 345. And I give my clients a range, go, hey, this is where I feel it should be in this range, but obviously it's their end decision. I don't tell them what to offer. And, but I can give them knowledge to go, hey, it's been sitting a little bit. This is where we're at. I've talked to the agent, and the agent says they've had some stuff in the past that fell through, whatever. I just do everything based off the information I'm able to gather. That was a really long-winded way of saying.
No, you know what? I think that's great because we say the word CMA all the time.
Yeah.
And or comps. We use the word comps all the time. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people don't know exactly what we mean. So yeah, it's essentially a mini appraisal. It is not done the same way an appraisal is. However, it is similar. Uh-huh. And we highlight different things, and like you said, we put it in a spreadsheet, we try to figure it out, and we just get to where we believe the value of the property is. Now, ultimately, like you said, it is the buyer and seller that choose the value of the property because it matters what it's worth to them. Uh-huh. Correct? We saw that all the time during COVID when people way overestimated what the value of that house was for them. Uh-huh. But I think helping people to see where the value is on a public level compared to a personal level, and talking to them about how to get a better deal. One of the techniques I can think of is to just write a clean contract. Sometimes people want to add in all kinds of extra special stipulations and they ticky-tacky, nick, and that can really kill the deal. And so sometimes an agent saying, hey, I know you want X, Y, and Z, but which one's the most important? Let's focus on getting you that one. You might be able to live without this. And so those kind of things like a clean contract or how we interact with other agents. Super, super important. What is your reputation? Is your reputation one of somebody who closes deals, or is your reputation one of someone who doesn't close deals? So, are you fighting with the agent? Is it adversarial, or are you making deals happen? And I think that our personal reputation is really, really important when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I think that makes a big difference. And it's one of those things that you wouldn't know, right? You wouldn't always know, but having somebody that but having somebody that seems that they work well with others, that they're willing to cooperate, they're willing to negotiate, you're going to get more. You catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. And that works in real estate too. If you just stomp all everybody and make them mad and just put them down, you're not going to get the contracts anymore. That type of adversarial negotiating, it has really gone away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of successful negotiations, I think about the house that we closed in March. It was an agent that I had worked with before in the past, and he called me ahead of time and he said, hey, Lauren, I have some VA buyers. Will your seller consider VA buyers? Mm-hmm. 100%. Not only will the seller consider VA buyers, but the seller really respects a VA buyer and understands what a VA loan needs, and we would definitely work with you. Not only that, but I've worked with you in the past, and we've closed deals, and it was a very smooth deal before. I would love to do it again.
Yeah.
His reputation and how we worked together in the past made his offer even stronger, regardless of the number.
Yeah. I would say in my time in real estate, the most exciting part for me was negotiating when we were getting ready to go under the contract with my last client, where they went through the house and there were some things not included in the house that they wanted, and going back and forth between my buyer and the seller's agent, and of course the seller agent representing the sellers, and we were able to negotiate in a washer, dryer, refrigerator into the contract, and we felt like Jerry Maguire making that deal, like call. It was fun, and everyone was happy because they got the house they want at a price they want with the appliances that they wanted that weren't originally included. And so obviously we had to do an amendment to add that into the contract. But it was one of those things, like, we were getting ready to go under contract. They wanted this, they wanted that. And so we were able to negotiate that in, and it left everybody feeling like good, because we gave good money for the appliances, so we weren't ripping off the seller. People paid what they wanted to get what they wanted, and so everyone just was happy, So it was a good time. I like that stuff.
Yeah, again, when people work well together and then you come to a good agreement in the end, it makes a big difference. So we kind of focused on the buyer side for that negotiating skills. But with the seller side, it's important to start with marketing the property effectively.
And the same thing for me, I would bring it back up again, and it's on the seller side too. The CMA is just as important to comparative market. Before you hit the market, know what their home is worth. If you price them correctly at the beginning of the stages, it's going to change. It's going to affect the negotiations after due diligence or during due diligence. It's going to affect every step of the way. So getting that correct before you even hit the market. And then once we hit the market, that marketing is so important. And I think we have a bit of an advantage because Lauren and I work for the largest brokerage in the United States, for the largest company
in the world,
in the world. Yeah, and for the largest company in the world. We have over 750 agents. So for us, when we get a listing or we have a buyer, we have within our own office an absolute wealth of other agents that can get eyes on the property. So we market within our office because we have our own private Facebook groups, and we have a nice office as well. We also use FMLS, Georgia MLS, which ends up on Zillow. We market using Facebook. We hustle is what I'm trying to say.
Every day we're hustling.
Yeah. So for us, marketing, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's like, because of the size of our office and everything else, like when we get a property, it gets seen by a lot of eyes right away. And we're able to close on houses in general quickly,
Yeah, faster. So it makes a big difference. That's the online presence, I think. We also have a lot of resources available to us. We have 2 or 3 photographers that are fantastic that we use. Your photography is everything. If you have an agent that wants to take cell phone photos, run. That is not going to cut it in today's market. Even if you get offers and you get people there, you got to wonder, did you get the full market value? Who did you turn off with bad photos? There's no reason to have those at this point.
Also, I don't know if people know this, we have a podcast.
What?
I know. I'm just throwing it out there. We don't advertise our properties or our listings on here. We try to keep it pretty anonymous, but we do get a lot of eyes on us. I'll say it that way. I mean, our last podcast had like 10 views. So I know we are climbing.
I think it's really important. I think that knowing the price that you list the house on is important. We do have a saying: you can't outmarket a badly priced home.
Yeah.
If it's overpriced, it doesn't matter how much you market it. People are not dumb.
Yeah, it's not.
They're not going to overpay.
We had a year where that was a thing. Maybe 2 years. They had a little bit of a run of that, but that was a unique circumstance that hopefully we never end up in again in our lifetimes, where you put a house up and it's sold before the day was done. Those days are done. Sorry. We got a balanced market, everybody.
Yep, you're much more balanced now. Yeah. I think that, I said the pictures and the photographs, but also, how the home looks before you do the photographs. These are all things that your agent can help you, like, guide you through. I think we had a podcast about the importance of staging, so we don't need to go too deep into it. But I think that staging before your photos just changes the whole feel of the photograph. If you were to go through your house right now and take pictures, most of us look like hoarders. I mean, even people that are clean, like, have clutter and things, and everyone would change how their house looks if they're going to sell. And you need to think about that and keep that. And sometimes, as Jonathan, we've learned with one of your listings, sometimes we need to add things to soften the look.
Yeah.
Right? It's not always about the just being completely empty. Sometimes if it's completely empty, you need to soften the look and create the feeling of home with, ironically, some tchotchkes and things like that are kind of neutral but soften things up a little bit.
And for instance, I have an empty property and we had to virtually stage to that way. I mean, it shows great. It's amazing condition and everything else, but it just needs to feel like a home when people are clicking through the pictures. So we had the stage pictures right next to the empty room picture so people can see the room empty, and then it gives them sort of visualization of what it could look like if someone lived there, you know what I mean? So we add the virtual staging photos to the listing to help sell it.
Yeah. And, I think that documents are super, super important. The community association disclosures that tell people about what is available in the community, what are the fees. It's important that your agent not only sits down with you and gets that information, but one of the things we do is we call the actual HOA and verify it. People don't always have the best information. They have their version of the information. But when we get to that closing table, those dollars need to make sense for our clients, right?
Yes.
And so sometimes they don't fully understand what the forms mean. And it's our job to look past that and to make sure that they're filled out correctly. Or even the seller's property disclosure. It's a very straightforward form in Georgia, but at the end of it, there's about 100 tiny little check boxes for everything from shower heads to switch plates to television mounts to TVs that they need to check off. And taking the time to slow down and go through that with the client helps them to understand, and it's going to help your negotiations further down the line.
Yeah.
Because if suddenly if they're unhappy with the price, this price is too low, I'm not leaving my refrigerator. Well, actually, Mr. Seller, you said you were leaving your refrigerator. That is staying. If you need to negotiate it out before you accept this price, that's fine, but you can't change your mind once we've signed it. Or, for example, you said you negotiated in appliances. Okay, well, they were happy with the price, so they were able to negotiate in some appliances.
Yeah.
And so those kind of things, you don't know that if you haven't sat there and filled out the paperwork with the clients and been helpful enough that they understand it as well. So there's no surprises at the end.
It is like, I'm going to use this word a lot. Like I said, when you're getting ready to go on the market and the agent hands you this big packet full of the things you need to know when selling your home, then we have what we call them in the industry, we call them CYAs, cover your rear ends.
Yeah.
But it's a lot.
I think, Jonathan, it's cover your assets.
Oh, your assets. That's what I was getting wrong. Acronyms and all that stuff. That's hard for me. But it's like 100-some pages of reading material, and you get handed this package. And if you have an HOA, there's a whole other package. I think it's Form F-256 or something like that. And it's a lot. Even though the questions are basic things, when you start going through these packets, it just starts to weigh on you. And so having a good agent on your side to go, listen, we can get through this together. They have to fill out the information to the best of their knowledge for legal reasons, but we can help. Go, okay, when do you think that roof is in? Like, if you give an estimate, because people go, I don't know, we got the roof done, I don't know, was it 4 or 5 years ago? Like, just getting as close as possible with that information is important, because in the end, the more and also people will go, I don't know if I should put this on there. Like, if you think about it, put it on there, because the more information that's on there before you get under contract, people are going to read the seller's disclosure before they go or put an offer in. If their agent's doing their job, they're going to read the seller's disclosure before an offer goes in, and knowing as much as possible about that property saves you from surprises after the inspection. Inspection turns up 15 things that you didn't put on your disclosure. It's going to throw your seller off a little bit, because then there's going to definitely be a price negotiation in there or something, and so it's important to let them know, like, the more you write in there, the less surprises we have in the future. If you hide something, there are legal ways that you're going to pay for this, so being open and honest is number one when it comes to that. Get that paperwork filled out as accurately as possible. Could there still be a surprise? Yes, but as long as they did it truthfully, they're.
And really, it's only things they have actual knowledge of, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is one of those things where, my poor husband, I'm very guilty of doing this. Just so you know, I'm guilty of this. I'm not talking about somebody else. I'm talking about myself. I'll be like, hey, I think something might be wrong with the AC, and I'll create this whole problem in my head, and and so that is not the kind of thing that you're going to put on the paper, right? Whereas
I think maybe sort of
that's not the kind of thing. I've been really worried about this. My husband is an engineer, and I say, was this built correctly? I don't know. Is this moving? What about the crack in the floor? I see these different things sometimes when I'm even at my own house, and I'm like, oh no, should we be worried about this crack? Is this a foundation issue? What's happening? And my husband, the engineer, will go and look at it and go, it's fine. Don't worry about it. No big deal. But I feel nervous about it just because I don't have the knowledge. And I think that people need to realize that some of those things you're nervous about, you can mention them to your agent, but if you don't have the actual knowledge that something's wrong, you don't have to put that down. So, no. But once again, that's the great reason to have an agent to fill the paperwork out with you, because they know what is what and how to help them.
And also just to explain what something's actually asking for, because they're not written in layman's terms. So having an agent that actually went through the courses with a broker and knows what the form's actually asking for and how to accurately fill it out is so important, because if you fill them out wrong, you're under a voidable contract. And you don't want that. Not void.
And Jonathan, that's a great point, because I have been in a situation where I had a buyer that changed their mind on a contract. They were out of due diligence. They did not have any finance contingency left. They had no reason that they should have been able to get out of the contract. But they said, Lauren, I need out, and I need out now. And I went through and I read through the contract, and I found a mistake the other agent made.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to get them out of the contract with their earnest money back, past their contingencies, because the other agent missed something in the contract.
Yeah.
So, sometimes there are not financial or sometimes there are no consequences to avoidable contracts. Sometimes they close, sometimes it's fine. Other times,
yeah, it sticks in.
Other times it loses the deal. And I think they fired that agent because of it. And so you have to make sure that, you know what's happening.
Yeah, that's important.
That's kind of, I guess we kind of did legalities and paperwork.
Yeah.
I think this also makes a difference. Before we leave this, I will say that when you work for a strong broker that has a really good infrastructure on how to help you with your documents and how to train you with your documents, I do believe that you're a stronger agent. Not to say that agents in smaller brokerages aren't strong. They can be, especially if they've had any kind of training or if they have a good infrastructure as well. However, I do feel like there is an advantage to people that have a strong broker that has strong knowledge of the legal side of the paperwork. Because when we have a question, we just pick up the phone and we can call our broker, and she is there to answer. She wants just the facts, and she'll give you the answer real fast, but that's the kind of black and white, quick answer you need in these situations. And I do find that is really valuable. I mean, you can even say it's invaluable, because there's no price point on that.
Yeah.
To be able to keep you legal, to know how to get out of a situation, to know how to get into the right situation. And I think that that's something that you have to realize is a big part of this, because this is the law.
Yeah, and it's important also, like, because of the size of our brokerage, we have two different attorney agencies within our brokerage, as well as our broker, who is extremely knowledgeable and one of the funnest people. Every time she teaches a class, it's awesome to be in her class. She's amazing. The way she talks, cued in, like, so, like, I think I guess that kind of leads us right into our networks. Within networks and resources, we have, at least in our agency, and why I would advocate for going for, especially when you're newer in the industry, to go into a larger brokerage that has more options for you. To teach you those legalities, to work with you through those forms, to show you how to be a better agent. And with that, we have our in-house lender, we have two different attorneys, we have a phenomenal broker. We also, Laura and I both use outside lenders as well. We're not limited to one. We have a plethora of resources at our fingertips that we're able to use. And I think we kind of mentioned this earlier, because of the size of our office, we have phenomenal networking as well. So our next point is your agent's ability to network and have access to resources. We have that in spades. Like, we are well taken care of in that form. We're very fortunate. And that, for me, I've not worked for anything else, because I knew Lauren before I was an agent and I was guided this direction. But Lauren, you have experience with working with multiple different brokers and everything else. And how about your resources, like, especially where we're at now, from what you've experienced in the past?
I started off with just a mom and pop brokerage, and although they were nice and wonderful and the fees were great, there were no resources, right? There was no hey, here's our inspector, here's our lender. There was no vetting of anything. There was no paperwork. There was no classes. I had to go find all that knowledge outside of my brokerage. And then I went to a larger but local brokerage, and that was great. I was able to get that knowledge, and it was a really great stepping stone. And at a certain point, I decided I needed more in-depth knowledge, and I started looking around for the right place for me to go. And that's where I took the next step, and that's when I joined our current brokerage. But I think that what I've learned is it's not just about the agent you choose, but it's about who your agent networks. If you went onto Google right now and Googled home inspector and put in a zip code, you're seeing the people that advertise the most. These may or may not be the best people in your area. And none of the mom and pops or the smaller companies or the local people are going to come up. You're only going to see large national brands. And I think that's really important, because sometimes the smaller companies are going to give you more. Not always, but sometimes they are. And so for us, we have a couple of different inspectors we really love working with. And even within that inspection company, we have a couple of inspectors that stand out as the best ones. There are some people that we don't like, and they get put on our no list. And that's important, because your agent should have that person. We have 2 or 3 attorneys that we love to work with. I had an attorney last week that we were able to get title work in 72 hours, and we closed a $500,000 deal in less than 7 days. You can't find that just Googling somebody on the internet, right? Somebody has to want to help you to make that happen. And those are the relationships that really make a big difference. And even mortgage brokers.
Yeah.
There are a lot of mortgage brokers out there. And here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is when you're talking to a mortgage broker, they have something, or a lender, let's say the word lender to start with. If you're talking to a lender, you might be talking to someone who does not broker their own loans. When you don't broker your own loans, you have different qualifications and standards. So you might talk to this person and your credit score has to be 700. You might talk to a direct broker and your credit score has to be 650. These are very different qualifications. And so the Fannie Mae has guidelines that they put out there, right? And then on top of those guidelines, they then have what are called overlays. And so every company has different overlays that they put on top. And those overlays they put on top tell them who they can sell the loan to on the back end, right? The secondary market. And if you don't know who your lender is, and if you are just Googling and find somebody, I guarantee the first one that's going to come up is Rocket Mortgage. They spend the most on advertising from what I've seen. Or just pick somebody that comes up on your Zillow, because Zillow is always wanting to sell you a broker. They may or may not be good. You need to know how many overlays they have, what they're offering, what they're doing. And who you are makes a difference. If you are getting a jumbo loan, I have a different lender for you, because lenders, some of the big banks do some of the best jumbo loans. If you're a small guy just barely making it and you're trying, every penny is going into this, I have a different person to do your loan, because it makes a difference. I even have a guy that if you are divorced and you are paying alimony, child support, and private school, like, he knows how to read those forms and get you approved. Whereas if you go to a generic mortgage person, they may not be able to. And so what we have is we have options for you based on what you need. And you know who doesn't know that? Google.
Yeah.
Google doesn't know what you need. They don't know the different aspects. And so some of these networking, I mean, they're really big. I've been networking with these people for almost 2 decades, and I know a lot of them. Movers. I can tell you who has the best insurance and is going to replace stuff. We had some movers that broke the slate in a pool table. It took them a while to find it because it was a very specific type of slate, but they did wind up replacing it. And for a mover to replace a high value item like a giant piece of slate is a really big deal. And I will tell you, the average moving company is not, they're going to say, oh, that's beyond our scope, we're not going to do that. And yet they did that for our clients. And so I think that having those connections, and with them knowing that they didn't want to disappoint me as well as the client, it just adds that layer of protection that you're working with.
Yeah, building a relationship with them. I don't want to say it gives you advantages, but it does, because I know you're going to use them again and again, and because of that, you were able to also help get deals for your clients. Obviously, you're not going to be able to change their finances on a mortgage, but having someone that is adept in working with them, like, for instance, you don't want to do a VA loan with someone who hasn't done a VA loan in 15 years. Because they don't ever get VA loans. So there's specific types of loans, and you'll find that some offices do these all the time, and they're very comfortable with. They're not so comfortable with doing that transaction. They're not really sure, they haven't worked with that as much as this other lender, So having a lender for each situation is really, really important, and knowing that, hey, you know what, this person is good at this. I recommend, because you're coming in with this type of loan or this situation, I want to put you in contact with this guy. I've worked with him in this exact situation before. He knows what he's doing. We're really happy with his results. At least talk to him. I'm not saying you have to use him, but as a good reference. You talk to him, see how you feel about it. This is where I recommend, because I've used him before. And as a matter of fact, like, before I was a realtor, we worked with Lauren, and she recommended a guy for us because we were coming from out of state and we had other situations going on in the background, and we were able to work with him. And now that guy's in my network because I've used him for several transactions, and I recommend him to a lot of people. And even if they're just like not under contract or anything, just they want to get their numbers and stuff, I like, talk to this guy. He's phenomenal.
He knows it forwards and backwards.
He's such a valuable resource. There's so many times I've called him like, hey, I just have this question. I'll give you one. Like, I just sold a house. We closed last week, and we didn't end up using that guy. But before we even went under contract, we had a conversation with him saying, hey, this is our situation. And not to get political, but this person was trying to use an FHA loan, but due to political climate, needed to be under contract before the 25th of last month. So we had 3 days to get under contract to be able to qualify for an FHA loan. If you weren't under contract before the 25th, you couldn't. Now, we got that information from the lender, like, here's where you want to be, this is what you want to do. And we ended up going with a different lender because we went with new construction, and it was builder financed. But his information got us there. Does that make sense?
Well, and that's a perfect example, Jonathan. If you didn't know that information, it would have been really hard for your client to find.
Oh, yeah. And if we would have missed that window, then it was like, well, they're not buying. You know what I mean? So we were in a situation where we got that information quickly. We were able to put it to use. We were able to get under contract. We were able to close. We were moved in. We're happy. And we did the whole thing in less than a month. And it was like, well, yeah, but we couldn't have done it without his help. And so
Yeah, that is a person in your network.
He did it for, like I said, there was no fee for that information. You know what I mean? He's just a valuable resource. Obviously, I'm going to use him in other transactions and everything else, and he'll get paid. Just, he has that information, and it's not like, give me this, so I give you that. He's there as a wealth of knowledge. And so...
Well, I think that's a great example of your networking, and I've heard somebody use this example that we walk around every day with coins in our pocket, and sometimes those are physical monetary coins, like right we have a clothing, but sometimes those are for a lack of a better word, like a karma coin, and you're like, hey, this guy helped me out, he really made a difference, and so like you put a coin in that, or he's put a coin into you, and you go, okay, when you need somebody, you go back to who has put those coins into your piggy bank in the past, and who should you work with. And a good partner, this is our friend Jason, but a good partner puts those coins into your bank even when you're not putting those coins into his. And other times you'll be putting those coins in his bank, and it'll make sense. But these are the kind of things that great agents have, these networks. Great agents have these resources. And if you start talking to the realtor that you are going to be working with, whether it be a buyer or a seller, you need to make sure they have these resources and have these networks in place. Oh, I'll find somebody. Oh, I'll look it up. Those are not great answers. Who's your lender? Oh, here's my favorite lenders for da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That is the answer you want.
Yeah.
Do you have an inspector? Yeah, I have some great inspectors. Do you want to do it pre-listing, or do you want to wait and have the buyer's inspector do it? These are the kind of questions you want to ask to figure out who to use.
And that is the perfect segue into providing valuable advice. For us, because of our networking and our resources and everything else, and doing previous transactions, it puts us in a place to give valuable advice to our clients, because we can, for instance, knowing that we had to be under contract by the 25th and figuring out the FHA rules and stuff for people that here are on asylum cases was something that we were able to give that advice because we got valuable information from our network and our resources to get those people where they wanted to be in the time frame that they wanted to be or needed to be. So providing valuable advice, I think we're so good at doing it. We do it for free every week on our podcast, because we were fortunate enough to have the support system behind us that we do have, that provides us enough information that we can put it out here for all of you people, But more in depth, what kinds of advice do you recommend to your clients most often?
Jonathan knows that for me at this point in my career, I do mostly listings. And so my advice a lot of time with sellers is around what repairs or preparation is most valuable to sellers. Should I paint? Should I change the carpet? Should I renovate? Should I change the roof? Should I landscape? Should I do this? Should I do that? And so most of my advice is based around listing.
Yeah.
And so paint is probably the number one question I get. Should I paint? Most of the time the answer is yes.
Just the looks, the smell gives off a vibe, right? It's something we've talked about in the past. Even if you just do touch-up paint, it changes the smell of the room to it smells, I don't want to say new, but like new paint smells, it works.
Well, and a good paint job increases the perception of value in a house. A bad paint job, I don't know, sometimes it decreases it.
Yeah.
A good paint job increases the value or the perception of value. And so it changes the people's perception of how they have maintained the house. I think any kind of water issues are definitely something that you want. You don't want that musty or wet smell. We are in Georgia, and I think it has rained for the past 45 days straight. We do have sunshine that comes out, but I think it's rained almost every day.
This year's been wet.
And we're already a humid, soggy kind of climate, very tropical, if you will. And so the fact that we've had so much rain this year, you want your basements to feel dry. Or even your whole house to feel dry. I can walk into some of these older homes and just, your crawl space is wet. I can smell it the second I walk in the door. I know what's going on. And so I think that that's where we provide that advice for them. Like, hey, when I walked in the door, I smelled this. Oh, how many cats do you own? Those kind of things. That is the advice that I give most often when working with sellers. With buyers, a lot of it is around lenders.
Yeah. For me, the thing I think of when I go with buyers is because I've been doing a lot of this, is looking up and it's something we've talked about earlier on this thing, is the CMA, having a market knowledge going in, because every time I've put an offer on a home, the first place I was like, what do you think? What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Well, based on my research, I feel they're a little overpriced. Or I feel if you really want to buy this house is going to have a lot of action on it. We should go a little above asking price. It's not always lower. Sometimes it's like, hey, we were doing our walkthrough and there were 3 other families waiting to walk through this house. This house is going to have a lot of action on it. This weekend, we get there opening weekend, we're there on a Friday, and there's 6 other families, and we can look at the showing time schedule and see that they're blocked off tomorrow and the next day with showings. This house is going to sell this weekend, and it's going to have multiple offers. And having that knowledge or advice to go, hey, listen, do you see yourself living there, and do you want to buy this house? Then we should probably go above asking, which in this market is less, but there are other situations where we have the knowledge to give. So giving them advice of a price range or price point really helps. So for me, because I've done a lot of offers, this is the advice I think I do most is price ranges.
Yeah, and I think that both of these situations, this advice turns into money or dollars for our buyers and sellers. And so this is not just advice that you get from your friends. This is really important counsel that we give to our clients. And I think that sometimes the harder it is to hear, the more you need to listen.
Yeah.
And sometimes sometimes it's okay. You don't have to listen. You can do what you need to do. But I think that this is really, really, really important because we have the expertise. And so if you've hired the right agent on the front end and asked them the right questions and you have the right thing, then you should lean into them for these. It frustrates me so much when I have a client that doesn't lean into me and they do things on their own without talking to me ahead of time. They don't need my permission, don't get me wrong. Yeah. However, if we have a conversation about it, I can help them to do it the right way. Like, hey, Lauren, you'd be so excited. I painted. Great. Yeah, painting is really important. The whole house red.
Well, on top of that, too, I mean, choosing the right agent in this situation. I've been in a situation where I was trying to buy a home and got frustrated because I was losing offer after offer after offer after offer. And it was just like, I got to the point where we were feeling like we're never going to buy a house. And having an agent that is current on the current markets, knows what's going on with things. Like, it's great you chose an agent you get along and they've been doing this a long time, but if you're not winning any of your offers or you're not getting any offers on the property you're selling, then that means something was done wrong. I'm not blaming it entirely on the agent, because if you're not listening to your agent, it doesn't matter what they tell you. But I've been in a situation where it's like, if they know the market, they know what's currently happening, they should be able to. I'm not saying they're going to hit bat 100%. Not everyone can win every single offer unless they're over offering every single time, but to consistently get you what you're looking for at a price range you're comfortable with the home, it's the sign of a good agent that knows what's going on in the area and knows how to get you under contract and can close that contract. Because, like I said, I've been in situations where I've had agents where I just could not get under contract, and I was frustrated as a buyer. If they don't understand the trend in the market, you're not going to win that. Does that make sense? And so I guess that kind of goes into our next one. I didn't even realize it, but what to look for when hiring an agent is the next one. But I'm trying to tie it into providing valuable advice. Having an agent that does the right information to get you under contract in the current market is the right advice. And that's something that I think Laura and I have been both very, very good at doing, is getting our clients under contract, getting them closed on both the buyer and seller sides on our team. Which brings us to what to look for in a right agent.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take a little minute here. I'm gonna step on my soapbox and tell you that if you are looking for an agent, you are going to need to sign a contract telling them that you are working with them exclusively. This is for a buyer or a seller. There is information that we are talking about, like our expertise, our opinion of price, our opinion of value, our opinion of even repairs. These are things that in Georgia need to be done once you are under contract with an agent. And with the new laws around compensation, it's really important to protect your buyer's agent. They need to know that they're going to get paid in the transaction. And without having a written agreement before you go look at houses, you're really asking them to work for free. You're really asking them to volunteer to help you. You are not hiring an agent. And so please understand that this is a professional industry and that we do require you to sign a contract to work with us. And if you are not signing a contract, then you need to kind of double check what you're doing, because that is not necessarily the right process at this point in our industry. As a buyer, before you look at houses, you should agree that that agent needs to get paid. And as a seller, you do need a signed listing agreement before you start doing some of the renovations or asking for their help, because this is the only way in this current market that we get paid. So there's my little soapbox. So when you're hiring potential agents, know that you haven't hired them and they can't give you all this advice until you're under contract with them as a buying contract or a listing contract.
Yeah. So I think we've just spent the last 8 talking points explaining how to choose the right agent. So I feel like everything we've done leading up to this point is what to look for in an agent. If they can't answer those top 8 questions, they're probably not a great agent.
Right. But but turning them into a question, I think, is good, right? So what is your experience in this market?
Yeah.
How long have you been selling? I don't know, and I will be really honest, and some people will fight me on this one, but at this point in our market, I don't know that you need somebody who's been in the business for 20 or 30 years, as well as your experience in the market in the past couple of years, right? Like, what have you done this year? What have you done last year? Our market got significantly harder in 2024. So my question for an agent is, how did you do in 2024? How did you do in 2025? Because these 2 years are just way more important. You had to work harder to make a sale the past 2 years. In 2020, 2021, 2022, all rising tides raise all ships, right?
Yeah.
It was not impressive to sell a lot of houses during COVID. All the houses were selling during COVID. Don't tell me about 0 days on the market. That doesn't tell me your skill level. That was the market, not your skill.
Yeah.
And so I want to know if you do the other things.
On an off market. You want an agent that did well through multiple things, that shows their ability to work no matter what the market is doing. So if they did a ton during COVID, well, good for them. What are you doing now? What did you do during a recession if they happen to be in industry that long? But you want an agent that can perform in the worst market conditions, and then obviously that translates into better markets. As the market gets better, they're going to go up as well. So you want someone that can handle what's happening now. Mm-hmm. So that person may have not been doing it for a million years, but they know what they're doing right now in this market, the market you're in. And if they can perform in the market you're in, that's who you want as an agent. You don't want someone that did really good 5 years ago and hasn't done anything since.
Yeah. And to that same point, I would encourage you to look at somebody that's good at technology.
Mm-hmm.
If your agent wants to fax you a document.
Still using a landline, huh? Yeah. Yeah. On top of that, like, there's an agent for everybody out there. I mean, obviously, Lauren and I feel we're the agent for everyone. We're perfect agents, but let's be honest, people have personalities, and in situations that are stressful, people act differently. And so you want someone that works well with your personality through those situations. So although we're pretty versatile and we can handle most people, there are going to be agents that are better than us, believe it or not, for a certain situation. And you need to be with someone that works with you on your level. That when you're stressed out, whatever that personality is that works well with you when you're in those tough situations, who you want to be with. You want their market knowledge and everything else as well. It's so important. But if you have someone that every time you're stressed out, they just push you over the edge, probably don't want to do your most stressful transaction in your life with that person. You know? Yeah. 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 Make sure that you have the ability to negotiate on your behalf. On your behalf is important. They may be able to negotiate really well, but if they're representing pushing everything to the other side of the transaction, that's not a great agent. They're not working for you. They're working against. Market properties effectively. Knowing how they're going to sell your property is super important. That's a good question to ask them. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to? How is this going to be represented on the internet? It's a great one. Yeah, yeah, and something we've been doing for the beginning of this year, providing valuable advice. They Yeah. Listen, it's worth doing. I mean, I will always give my advice out to anybody. When things get more serious, I do want to point out that I would put you under contract when things get real and we start looking at property. But I will give you my opinion on anything. Anything. Not even real estate related. You want to ask me car questions? I got you. Motorcycle questions? I'm there too. I love giving. But yeah, giving your clients valuable advice is it goes leaps and bounds. A well prepared client going into a situation versus a client going through it on their own has two completely different outcomes. Sometimes they both close, but how they feel about that transaction, that taste that's left in your mouth when everything's all said and done, is so important. You know, I want everyone to know that there are good agents out there, and when you're done with a transaction with me, I want you to feel good about it. And obviously, I want that person to continue to use me and recommend me to all their friends, and that's very important to me to be a part of the whole transaction and let people know I'm there for them. Which is why I think that's pretty much everything, right? Yeah, don't jump in and buy tomorrow. The like I said, coming in prepared and knowledgeable makes this thing so much easier on everybody involved in the training. Yeah, yeah. Notification bell. It's our favorite. Everyone, have a fantastic weekend, and we will catch you on the next episode.